Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Another exciting day. It's a Tuesday. Sun is
It is an
shining.
exciting day. I'm a little bit off because of our delayed start time, but it's all
Ho-
good.
Hopefully, our fans will forgive us. We're lifing over here. So I had a little something that had to get done. And now that that's done, I'm here now. So all good.
Be here
Happy to
now.
report. Be here now, exactly. Happy to report from the Western North Carolina region that the rain is absolutely doing its job. Everything is blooming, blooming, blooming all over the place. So I'm absolutely being spoiled with colors and beautiful just growth everywhere. Even as you drive on the side of the road, there's just like random flower patches everywhere. So I'm really happy to be in spring. Thank God. I've put away all my summer coats. So now I get to play the game of turning my closet inside out, getting out the spring and summer wear. So excited about that.
Fun, fun.
Yeah. I went to I'll share one story real quick. Over the weekend we went to I'm going to get the name wrong, but it was like Georgia Mountain Smoke and Fire Barbecue Festival, something like that.
I
But
saw pictures.
yeah, it was so cool. First of all, the weather was perfect. Second, it was just these, like when I say fairgrounds, I think of like the Miami-Dade fairgrounds, like, God knows how many acres it is. This one is smaller, but on a lake, absolutely gorgeous. Weather was perfect, big, giant, overgrown trees. But what's really cool, and I was like, this is the most Southern thing I've ever heard. This is so polite. This is the most polite festival I've ever been to. There are all these booths. Everyone gets this. It's called the Big Green Egg. It's like a ceramic grill that's like apparently a really big deal.
I know them.
And you know them. So the company puts one in each of these booths. People pay to have their booth, and then they cook and they give everybody like little sample side, little tastings, of whatever they cook. And I was really excited. And you know me, I want to support local businesses. So I'm like, oh, where is your restaurant? And people are like, we don't have a restaurant. And I'm like, well, like, are you selling a rub or something? Or like, how can I support you? And they're like, no, we're just doing this for the fun of it. Like, there's not even a prize or anything. So literally, like, just families are out there grilling and giving out samples of their delicious food that they just make at home for their families. And they're not doing it for anything other than the sheer joy of cooking. I'm like, this is the strangest thing I've ever heard. You're not trying to sell a rub. You're not trying to, like, promote your restaurant or your special brush or anything. And they're like, no, we just love doing it. Enjoy. Come get seconds. I mean, they were even like, please go into the whole festival, come back and grab some more. I was like, this is so polite. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yes, having grown up in the Midwest, seeing how people behave in South Florida, which is what you've been exposed to your entire life, is not necessarily the norm of humanity out there. That's so I'm so happy that you're like experiencing the niceness of people, the kindness of people. It is a different world out there than what many of us in some parts are being shown as, like, this is the norm. No, it's not. Kindness is.
I think the kindness is everywhere. I think what shocked me was the scale of it, right? That everybody that was at this festival was there with the same mission and vision to just participate in humanity's sake, like just to participate in life, and that part was really, really cool. So anyway, what'd you do this weekend?
So I spent the entire, well, Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday at and I always, like, I mess up the title of it, but it is the Conference of Consciousness and Human Evolution. Like, they kept putting it
Ooh.
TCCHE, and I would have to, like, keep reminding myself, what do all the letters stand for? but it was a really cool event. There were some big names that you probably have heard of, like Bruce Lipton, Michael Beckworth, Greg Braden, some maybe little lesser known, like William Henry, the I forget their names, but they're the Hertogs. They're like doctor, scientist. Um, and then there were some people there that I never heard of before. I will say, like, my favorite presenter was this guy, Curtis Childs. Um, he presented on Sunday. He's like talking about um, Emanuel Swedenborg. Have you ever heard of him? Yeah,
No.
neither. And I'm going, how have I spent like the last 30 plus years, like deep diving into spirituality, and I've never heard of this guy before.
You've been a little busy
I don't know,
running a business too.
he's like from the 1700s or something, like some ancient philosopher. But like tapping into his work, and what I loved, his his presentation was on his formula for happiness, which is humility plus usefulness equals happiness. And I was like, so simple of a formula, but it also is so in alignment with because people come to me all the time with like, oh, you're so lucky that you found your mission, your purpose in this life. And I'm like, but all of our missions are exactly the same. It's just, how do you put it out there in the world? And so the blue ones, when I sit and have conversations with them, one day, it was, how do you find your purpose? Because people ask me this all the time, and their message was, everyone's purpose is to serve. I'm like, okay, explain more. And then the message to serve is simply to love. And so doing whatever you do, it's about like, how does that create more love in the world? And you can find that service, that love in anything you do. Like, obviously, me as a healer, it's far more obvious like what that is, but I tell people, like, if my job was to clean toilets, like, I just think about, like, for me, everybody who knows me knows that I hate using public toilets. But if I go into a public restroom and find it neat and clean and tidy, like, I feel so safe and protected and served and supported. And it's like the most amazing, wonderful thing to me. And so, like, if that's your job, like, don't just clean the toilet to make the toilet clean. Like, think about this gift that you're giving humanity, people who need the call, the nature is calling, and you need this clean toilet. Like, it potentially can mean everything to someone. And I think about how, like, it wasn't the thing when I was a kid, but somewhere along the way it became the thing. Like, you have to squat over a toilet instead of sitting on a toilet. And when you squat, you pee everywhere. And then I think about, like, it's fine if you can squat, but look at like the elderly and the less physically capable people. They can't squat over a toilet. They need a clean toilet seat. So it's a whole big thing. I could probably talk this whole episode on the importance of clean toilets. But back to the original message, it's about being of service. And being of service, they told me, translates to love. And then it is about being in service to others, loving others, but it's also about being in service to yourself and loving yourself. Because if you don't serve and love yourself first, you can't serve and love others either.
Yeah.
So, him giving this message about be humble, be useful, and then you will be happy. Serve in love, and you will be happy too.
Yeah, there's so much that anything that you do, if you're doing it with intention and the right intention, then it becomes a mindfulness practice, and it is received in that way as well, right? Like, even being at a restaurant and having somebody drop off a dish to you, having somebody throw the plate in front of you versus having somebody, place it on the table and look you in the eye and say, enjoy your meal. Like, wow, it totally changes how you show up, and it changes your own mentality. I often do reshoots for people that have had their pictures taken before and they didn't like them. And so I redo them for them. And the biggest like common denominator that I can figure between my work and someone else's work, like, yes, of course it's lighting and this is that, but that's just something technical. That's something that you can learn off of YouTube if you wanted to. The difference is I care, and I don't know, we were talking earlier, like, I don't know how to quantify that in a provable way other than to look at my work, because the difference between the picture that I take and the picture that people are having me, redo, is that I cared about the person. Because if you really care about the person, then you are going to adjust the lighting. You're not going to put everybody in the same exact light because everybody looks different, right? So even something that feels so, non-emotional, everything has to be emotional. Like, I'm sorry for all the people that are scared of emotions, but you got to start there. I'm having my deck redone, and it has been an enormous project. And listening to the person that's doing it now review the work of the other person, not only is he saying, hey, what's already here is not just technically like unsound, but structurally unsafe, but it's somebody who didn't care, right? Because if you love yourself and you have your own self-worth and you have your own standards of what's acceptable to you, you would never have nailed this post to this post in this way. If it was your mom's house, you wouldn't have done that, right? Because why? Because you love her, not because you don't know the skill and you knew it then and you didn't know it now. It's not about the skill, it's about the attention that you give to it. So yeah, totally. Say it again: humility and
usefulness equals
usefulness.
happiness.
There you go. I love it. I love it.
But the other thing that I enjoyed, people were like, what was your big takeaway? What was the new thing that and I don't know that there was anything new that was presented to me, but what felt so good was that everything that we're about, that Body and Soul Ministries is about, that Cacao Conversations is about, like everything that we stand for was like preached and preached some more this weekend. And I was like, we are on the right track and we are not alone. And that just felt really good. Bruce Lipton, like one of his like they were tearing apart Darwin and natural selection, and he's like, that's all about competition, and it's not right, and it's not true, and that's not how we evolved, and science is proving that now. And what is important about human evolution is community and working together, and that's how we survive, not by fighting and competing and being the winner. Like, together we win, alone not so much. And there was also a lot of talk about AI, which, based on our conversations, I know you would appreciate. But the really cool thing was that scientifically, there is no possible way for AI to be better, faster, anything than humans. Like, they were like showing the science of how powerful the human is. And like, it's physically impossible for AI to outdo us. So AI cannot replace humanity.
Well, interestingly enough, early this week, I went to a workshop / seminar, and we had someone here from a conservatory trust, if I'm saying that right, where they purchase land and they protect it, et cetera. And so she was teaching us a whole lot of incredible things, particular to the Western North Carolina area. And one of the things that surprised me, and I guess it shouldn't have, but I had never thought of it. You know, you don't think of it till someone tells you. She was giving tips on, you know, don't use microplastics, and, you know, do this, and don't use the extra paper bag if you don't have to, you know, that sort of thing. But then she said, and don't use AI. And she had AI with a big do not sign over it. And I was like, interesting. And she said, if you can, and you can Google this, you know, to get the actual numbers, but if you look at the impact of using AI, you have to create these massive server farms, you know, which there are
Mhm.
plenty in this area as well. Those server farms get hot, so they affect the temperature of everything around them. They have to be cooled down. They use systems that use water and use energy. And so just your typical Google search is literally impacting the health of the environment. Forget the other stuff of like sitting in front of the screen and, you know, all of that type stuff. Just literally the relationship between AI and the environment. And, you know, unless somebody tells it to you, you don't know. So I was completely blown away at how significant of an impact those server farms have on the environment. So yeah, that was that again, powerful, powerful stuff. So
Yes. I was like, there was one more message I wanted to share, and now I lost it after the
it'll
conversation
come back.
about AI.
It'll come
But
back.
it was a wonderful weekend to also sit in the space and see that so many people are on the spiritual journey and recognizing that what's out there um is not our destiny, it's not our truth, it's um and this, I'll just call it a spiritual movement because I don't know what else to call it, a human evolution. It's grown so big, and it's growing bigger and faster than what anybody can imagine. And so don't believe what you see on the news. Don't believe what you see on social media. And just keep, I don't even like calling it work. Just keep growing and evolving and tuning into your heart and love and trust that the rest of the world is catching up, and we are going to shift out of the shit show that you see on the TV.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I love it. So
So
let's
we do have a topic for today.
yeah, go for it.
Um, so our topic for today is how to stay inspired when your creativity feels blocked.
I think
Um,
the precursor question to that, if you will, is, you know, how does creativity, like, what do we mean by creativity, right? Like, you say creativity, and the first thing that comes to mind is like an artist or a musician, or, you know, even me as a photographer, right? But how else does creativity show up in our lives, you know?
well, creativity is about creating, and like everything gets created, our computers that we're sitting on, like that required creativity for someone to come up with a computer and to advance them to the stage that you and I get to sit here and have a conversation that's broadcasting out live to the world that anyone can tune into. Like that was a creation process. The house that you live in is a creation process. The clothes that you wear are a creation process. Creativity shows up everywhere. And um, I think most importantly in um, how we live, like everything that we do in our day-to-day lives is a creation process. I'll talk about like in a simplistic, like we have to eat food every day to survive, or at least we think we do. That's also debatable as well. But um, we, my boyfriend and I, went through a period where we were just like we were practically not eating just because like both of us had lost the creative drive of preparing a meal. And I think it had been like partially like we'd just gotten into the habit of making the same few meals and just recycling them over and over again. And then at one point one of us was just like, this has got to stop. Like, I don't even feel like eating anymore because it's just the same. And so we had to tune in and get creative and go to the grocery store and look at things differently, and just brought back some creativity in our meal planning here at home.
Yeah. I would venture to say also parenting requires an enormous amount of creativity.
Yeah.
Because what you think works today doesn't work tomorrow. And even in relationship communications and getting your kids to do what you need them to do and getting out the door in a certain way. I know that when my twins were little, I would be like, yes, I nailed it. I figured out how to get them to put their shoes on. And then the next day it was like total rejection, nothing at all, like back to the shit show, you know? So creativity, yeah, totally. It shows up in so many parts of your life. And I think step one to being creative is to clear your mind, you know? When you keep, well, when I keep staring at a problem, all I see is the problem and I can't see outside of the problem. So number one step for me is clearing your mind. But number two for me, really powerful. I forget who taught me this, but it was to look outside of the industry or the subject matter of what you're wanting to be creative in. So for me as a photographer, when I want to get inspired, I don't look at photographs. I don't look at other people's work. That doesn't inspire me. Frankly, it kind of bores me sometimes. What I look at is processes outside of photography. I might go for a walk, in the woods. I might look at, I don't know, a cookbook, or I might read a story and find inspiration in those ways. I had someone years and years ago told me there was a website. I don't know if it still exists, but it was called Abstract Title Generator. And you could just kind of like hit this randomizer button and it would put together like a really weird combination of words, but it prompted you to think about things in a different way, So it might have been like purple book plane, I don't know, something like that, or the unraveling of Jane's shoe, I don't know, just like weird things that you would never think to put together, but it got you thinking, it got you thinking in a different way. So for me, definitely clearing my mind, changing my viewpoint, what angle I'm looking at the situation from, and stepping outside of it completely, stepping outside of the industry, stepping outside of, the subject of whatever it, like you were talking about meals, like you want to think of new meals, go watch a travel program, that will give you new ideas, right?
Yes, yes. So we would be remiss if we did not talk about our big source of creativity. Like, it never ceases to amaze me how much drinking cacao can open up creativity. And so cacao is known as a heart opener, so it's opening your heart. And I think sometimes that we think that our creativity is in our head, but I think the true source of creativity is in our heart. But I don't know, people may disagree with me, but my platform is that the solution to every problem is love, and if you haven't found the solution, add more love. You'll find it.
I think at a minimum, the two are inextricably intertwined. I don't think you can take a cold approach to creativity. I think it does require creating that clean space in your head, that feeling of safety, right? Like if you're evading a predator, probably creativity is not high on the list. Maybe a creative way to evade the predator, I don't know. But even that is still based in your heart, right? Even that is still based in survival. How do I get out of this? So yeah, I like that. I think that's good. And cacao, I know I sound like a cacao evangelist. it has absolutely changed both of our lives. Where we were X years ago, I don't even know how many years now, and where we are today. The fact that we're hosting ceremonies, and I mean, I changed my entire life. I moved to different states, and I give a lot of credit to Cacao for putting me in that creative state and allowing me to access thoughts and ideas that I probably wouldn't have had I not spent that dedicated ritualistic style time with it. So yeah, I love it. It's the kind of thing that forces you to slow down. I love it so much.
I do also want to speak to the fact that creativity is a feminine um,
Quality.
quality. Thank you. And you know, feminine quality does not equate to women. It's because we all, whether we're women or men, we have the masculine and feminine energy. But another tool that we can use when we're trying to amplify our creativity is to tune into more of that feminine energy. And I was talking about it this weekend. Like, literally, I chose to wear a dress all 3 days to the conference. And I think old Julietta, like Julietta from like 20 years ago, would have probably put on like sweatpants and a sweatshirt, or like whatever I judged as being like the most comfy, stretchable, like whatever. And I looked around and there were people that showed up that way. And that's completely fine if that's what you want to how you want to show up in the world. But um, one of my friends that I came with, she made a comment on my dress and how nice it was and da da da. And that brought back a conversation of one of I mean, it seems like a ridiculous tool, but wearing dresses is actually something I actively, intentionally chose to do to help me connect more with the feminine energy. Because for so many, I mean, I think I was born in predominant masculine energy. My mom's like, you were independent from the moment you came out of the womb, like you just go go go, do do do. And I had to make changes to bring this feminine energy forth. And it seems ridiculous and crazy, but literally the act of wearing dresses helps bring in that feminine energy, which is creative energy.
Yeah, totally. And I don't think it's crazy at all, if you well, hey there, Tracy Samples. Good morning. She says, great conversation about creativity. Going for a walk on the beach restores my creativity instantly. Yeah, that clearing of the mind. But what I was going to say about clothing, clothing is not to be underestimated. A warrior puts on a suit of armor not just for protection, but for a particular mindset. I don't know, the Pope wears what he wears for himself and to send a message, right? We like our presidents and our heads of state to wear dark blue suits, and I mean, to the point that, remember, like Obama wore like a tan suit and the world fell apart. Like, what we wear totally affects how you show up, and how other people feel in your presence as well. So it's really interesting. I'm not one to dress for what anyone else thinks. I'm all about do what feels good to you. The more creative, and you know I love everything. I really do. I love all types of fashion. I could totally see the whole like Met Gala red carpet. I absolutely love it. And I absolutely love like the total goth world too. So like what I love, if you look at what those things have in common, it's people being their authentic selves. That's what's exciting, right? When I see a group of people out on the town and they're all wearing the same thing and it looks like a uniform, I'm like, boring. But when I see someone dressed, quote unquote weird, I love it, because what is it about that person? And they're owning themselves, they're being creative. They are birthing a feeling, so kudos to everyone, that anyone ever called you weird, because you were on the right track, all the whole entire time. So I do love that. And I encourage you all to find your creativity. What are you being creative with? And please, please let us know in the comments. We do love a good conversation. We do read them, and we will reply as well. But, I love seeing how people find creativity in their own lives. And it inspires me. I mean, we're doing the show for you, but it's really for us, because I really want to hear more of this myself. So, anywho, beautiful. Anything else on creativity?
I, I, I could probably ramble more and more, but I think we hit like the important highlights for, how what works for us in our lives, and I'm sure there are many other tools out there. I think the important thing is, like, when you feel the inspiration of creativity, act on it. Like, how many times do you have this burst of creativity, and it just lives inside your head and it never gets out there into the world? And so please, 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 like, put it out there, share it with the world, because the world needs more of that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give one final end of the episode plug for our retreat coming up. It is 30 days away. We have just a little bit of space left. It keeps getting smaller and smaller, availability every day. So if you're seeking a creative reset, this is the perfect way to let go of what isn't serving you, identify it, burn it off, quite literally, hint, hint, and create and be in your feminine energy. So it's a
I do
women's
want to say that people have thought that, like, registration is closed and they missed the boat.
No.
Registration is not closed. There's still a couple beds left. There is room for you. One of those beds has your name on it. Reach out to us. Like, let's make this happen. It is not too late yet to register. You haven't lost the opportunity. It is still here waiting for you. And like, if you're even just slightly thinking about you'd like to do this, like, that is your soul calling to you, begging to you, please, please go do this. Like, you need this, the world needs for you to do this, your loved ones need for you to do this, and I promise you won't regret it.
Absolutely. I love it. Well said. Pam Littleton. Yes, Pam is our official countdown queen. She is counting down the days. We are so excited, so lucky to have Pam be there. It's going to be truly amazing. I'm excited for it.
It is. All right, I think that's a wrap for today.
That's a wrap, guys.
I do want to wish everybody a very magical day.